O come, Emmanuel, we wait in hope, longing for light. Come, thou long expected Jesus. Advent, preparation, and it's even more. What does Advent really mean? The word. Let's now go to God and hear the scriptures today. These are from what's often called First Isaiah. I'll be preaching on Isaiah throughout the season of Lent. This is a little bit of a stretch for me. There's so many great gospel passages we cover just about every year, whether it be Matthew, Mark, or Luke, depending on the year. This year is a Matthew focus, but I found a lot of power for us today in grounding us in Advent in the Isaiah lectionary passages. Here is, I don't expect you to be able to see the fine print, anybody at home or here, about all those towns. I just want to give you a sense that the darker green is just before when first Isaiah, quote unquote, was written between 750 and 700 BCE. And then the lighter green is when the Assyrian Empire from the northeast swooped down and really got them. But Isaiah is writing in the midst of the desolation, the threat, and you see Judah carved out in the middle. The kings had worked out a compromise with the Assyrians before they sacked the city much later, Jerusalem. But there's been a lot of corruption going on in the highest places, and Isaiah is speaking to that throughout his first 39 chapters. So let's go to chapter 2 today, right after he has issued a big warning, words of judgment. Hear the good news in words that may be familiar to many of us. And I've highlighted, as usual, a few words to make some more sense of the passage. The word that Isaiah, son of Amoz, saw. He saw the word. The word that he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. So we now know he's going to see a word, it's going to be a vision. In days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains. You ever been to Jerusalem? It's not very high, but it's high in terms of the paramount importance, is how the Hebrew word is used here. Shall be established as the highest of the mountains and shall be raised above the hills. All the nations shall stream to it. Many people shall come and say, come, let us go up. Again, figurative speech, but powerful metaphor. Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. That phrase is used by later writers in Isaiah, a couple of centuries later, which leads many scholars to believe that this is all edited together into one piece as we have it today. So to the house of the God of Jacob, that the Lord may teach us holy ways and that we may walk. Notice how teach and walk are connected, just like word and saw. Teach us holy ways that we may walk in God's paths. For out of Zion, that word is used in later Isaiah writings, 2 centuries later, but now is brought in and it's part of the redacted, edited version here. For out of Zion shall go forth instruction. The word is Torah. The first 5 books, instruction, Torah, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem, who shall judge between the nations and shall arbitrate for many peoples. And the meaning of the Hebrew is clear. There's a connection between the following words and the previous words. That God shall do these things so that they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. O house of Jacob, come, let us walk in the light of the Lord. Hear what the Spirit is saying to us as a church. Would you pray with me? For everyone neath their vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. For everyone neath their vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And into plowshares turn their swords. Nations shall learn war no more. And into plowshares turn their swords. Nations shall learn war no more. Amen. Welcome to the first scripture of the first Sunday of the first of 3 lectionary years, Advent A1. Welcome to Advent, a new beginning, beginnings marked not by the birth of God incarnate, but by the dawning of our discipleship. A season called, against all cultural temptations otherwise, Advent and not Christmas. For Christmas season begins, are you ready for this? It begins on Christmas Day. The first day of the 12 days of Christmas. And the season of Advent is meant to prepare us all for that, right? Or could there be something more here to the dawning of our discipleship? Beyond wait and hope, beyond longing for light, beyond, O come, Emmanuel, but beyond, come, thou long expected Jesus. Maybe there's something more to this dawning of our discipleship. Well, let's start with the basics. What does the word Advent mean to begin with? Pop quiz. What does Advent? Just think of the general word Advent. If you're on Zoom, unmute yourself and help these people in the sanctuary.
It means
what is
arrival.
Advent? What's that?
It means arrival.
Beginning.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear, sorry.
It's starting.
Right. What's that? Arriving. Yes.
out.
Who else? Coming.
Beginning.
Discerning. Adventure.
Beginning.
Begetting. Well, Kevin White wins the prize on Zoom. It means arriving. Look the word up. Put it up here. Oh, let me put this. Hold on. There we go. And now it won't work. Oh, boy.
We see it.
We see it,
We
Chuck.
see it.
I know
Chuck.
you do. I know you do, but the people in the sanctuary cannot. No, the shutter's not working. Yep. I see it flickering, but it's not working. Yep. Anyway, the arrival of a notable person or thing, the advent of something. So when we speak of the advent of something, a word that means arrival, should we mean just the arrival of Jesus? I don't see Jesus arriving yet, do we? You might want to try put some batteries in it. Yep. Or when we speak of the season of Advent, do we mean a season of the arrival of a new world to come? Mm-hmm. Yet being imagined into arrival already. Got it? Mm-hmm. There we go. Hold on. I think these slides were trying to arrive, and now I turn them off. Lest Advent be but a prelude to the book of Christmas. Do we mean a season of it's a preface which the prophet Isaiah would never have imagined. Isaiah's living 8 centuries before Jesus. He could not imagine this. He's speaking of arrival in his present day. So let us listen now to what he does imagine. The dawning of our discipleship, midst the fade of the holy all around him, a temple emptied, a sanctuary on the cusp. Where are the people? Much like I have spoken recently on the Del Rey Club next door and its 30 weekly AA meetings and more. As you know, Del Rey is a spiritually alive place where I've witnessed people coming spiritually alive. No one there waiting it out for Christmas. No one I know. I was leading an AA meeting there recently, and a long-time sober alcoholic myself, and I casually mentioned that the room where 35 of us were then gathered had at one time served as a chapel for our church. I thought little of my comment, but many thought more. I saw many eyes widened. And in the shares around the room after my lead, it was evident many were inspired by that news flash to them. There had been a chapel here. For many felt now what others had felt had gone before them, a sanctuary's vigil for them years later. And many in this season of Thanksgiving then expressed the great gratitude they now felt for their experience, let us say, of Advent. The feeling, in other words, that they had arrived. Their Advent, for they had arrived, including one who recalled leaving prison after 7 years, walking from a halfway house nearby to that very recovery room, to that very Mittendorf chapel of old, and feeling a freedom he had never felt in the midst of a liberation he now had beginning to take shape in his life. I believe now more than ever that many recovering alcoholics and addicts and codependents can sense the prayer and meditation that long precedes them in a room like that. If they but only knew. And all I had to do was to summon the spirits, and I did not even know I was doing just that. The spirits of a sanctuary lying in vigil for them. A sanctuary's vigil. And so I mention it in this sanctuary today as one of our longtime numbers shared with us recently this sanctuary where he slipped into the back corner of the back pew when he first arrived here. Not only so he could make a quick exit at the end, but also because the sanctuary was so full in those days. As I hardly need reminding a few of you from those days, it was what it was. And yet now our sanctuary stands vigil to the advent, the arrival of a new day dawning. Much like the sanctuary of old in Isaiah's day. A forlorn, forgotten, lonely place until the embers were stirred by the prophet's imagination. Until, as we heard, he could see the word. Not hear it, see it. Could see, envision it, that his sanctuary would become, as one Isaiah scholar suggests, like a United Nations. As indeed, that's where Isaiah's words are carved into a wall across from the UN building, these words today. Isaiah could see it, could envision it, a high place that flattens out. A high place that flattens out all allegiances and arrogances and attitudes. Swords into plowshares, spears into pruning hooks. A sanctuary's vigil Isaiah held of plows and pruning in the worshiping space. Sounds strange? You want to hear strange? I served as a seminary intern in Tucson, Arizona. I've told pieces of this story in the past. It was less than 90 minutes from the border, and I served a church whose sanctuary, small sanctuary, housed 12,000 refugees in 1 decade of time fleeing north. 12,000. Like plows and pruning hooks in Isaiah's vision, what were they doing there? huddled in the sanctuary for God's sake, sleeping on the floor of a church. What were these people of the plow doing here? And some church people also asked, where did the pews go? Where went the pews? I'm not saying we should take the pews out, but these are the questions to ask. Where did the pews? Perhaps the pews left so that a new people of a new communion could newly arrive. Perhaps the new people at the farmer's market, which is not there this weekend, and the new people who are next door to our church, a new communion can newly arrive. What's the sanctuary's vigil we pay now? Advent, to arrive. And our sanctuary today stands vigil to those who would arrive. Not in vigil to worshipers of yore. They will never return, ever. We must give up all hopes of a better yesterday. Today, instead, our sanctuary stands vigil to a new spirit that, like the Mittendorf Chapel of old does today, can transform in people's lives the swords and the spears of their fear-filled, stratified world all around them. Our sanctuary stands vigil for that. How can it stand vigil ever the more? What do we need to do for a whole new humanity? And who will it be? Who knows? The question for us remains, midst the vacuity of the old, can we, like Isaiah, imagine the new? Let us see the word. Thanks be to God. Amen.